You're good at this.
But look me in the eye and tell me anyone could have done worse. We just got our ass kicked by fire.
You know how much water it takes?
Many gallons.
1,900 gallons to grow a pound of almonds.
Yeah. Bill Maher destroys woke Gavin Newsom on live TV, and it wasn't without reason. While California was literally burning and families rationed water, Newsom was busy flexing about almond production. Never mind that it takes nearly 1,900 gallons to grow a single pound. Maher couldn't take the hypocrisy anymore and unleashed a brutal takedown that left no progressive excuse standing.
California is the place that spends money and gets nothing, which is why you may have noticed when the fires broke out, no one escaped by high-speed rail.
California is falling apart, and Bill Maher has finally had enough. This isn't some conservative hit job or partisan takedown. This is Bill Maher, a lifelong liberal, unloading on Gavin Newsom like never before. And he didn't do it on Fox News. He did it right on his own turf, where you'd least expect it. No holding back, no sugarcoating, just raw frustration. Because the California that once stood as the progressive crown jewel, it's now a flaming wreck, and Maher knows exactly who's responsible.
Way too many regulations and laws, as we've talked about. And this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department.
Yeah.
You could see it in Maher's face. The jokes stopped being funny. The sarcasm gave way to something sharper. When Newsom started bragging about gender-neutral toy aisles, while Californians were dodging wildfires and stepping over homeless camps, Maher cracked. "This is the problem," he said. "This is why we can't fix anything." Because while the state burns, Newsom's playing culture war games with retail shelves. And not even because the people demanded it. Maher pointed out the corporations themselves were already moving in that direction. But Newsom couldn't resist slapping a law on it. Why? Because that's what he does. Over-regulate, over-promise, under-deliver. That's the real Gavin Newsom.
I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state.
I was just at KBLA with Tavis Smiley, a station I proudly support, and we had this exact conversation. Tavis, a progressive voice and a black voter who's been loyal to the Democratic Party for decades, said it straight. Newsom can't win, not in a red state, not even in the South, not after what he's done to California. And he's right, because this isn't just about bad policies, it's about a total breakdown in leadership. Even progressive voices are walking away.
Governor Newsom said the local folks are trying to figure that out. Yeah, you got to do that before the fire.
Let's talk about what really broke people's trust. During the LA wildfires, where was Newsom? The National Guard didn't show up on time. Emergency coordination was a joke, and it wasn't just wildfires. The ICE-related riots? LAPD came out publicly and said they were overwhelmed, outmanned, and abandoned. Meanwhile, protesters were allegedly being handed frozen water bottles and masks, almost like someone wanted this chaos to escalate. But did the media ask who was behind it? Did Newsom step up and take control? Not even close. And that silence spoke volumes.
The mayor said about cuts to the fire department's budget, there were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation. The fire chief here had a slightly different take. She said, "We are screaming to be properly funded."
Bill O'Reilly suggested something that Maher echoed in his own way. Newsom didn't just fail to control the chaos, he used it. He let it explode because it served him politically. He wanted to paint Trump as the authoritarian, the villain. And if that meant sacrificing LA's peace and order, so be it. Because in Gavin's world, the campaign matters more than the people.
What is included for that? Breadsticks? Because it clearly doesn't cover fire. That's government's job. Protect us from crime, violence, theft, fire. I'm not saying Alabama.
The cities were burning, people were scared, and instead of calming things down, he made it about himself. Tough guy act, complete with fake bravado. But within days, the pressure got too real. Social media erupted. Even his own base started questioning him. And what did he do?
I feel like this country is divided into owners and healers. People think you can own the other side. Yeah, well, Gavin Newsom owned DeSantis. Yeah. DeSantis destroyed Gavin Newsom.
The disappointment from this act cuts deeper because it's coming from people who wanted to believe in him. Maher isn't some random critic. He once defended Newsom, backed his ideas, even called him one of the good ones. But that was before the state spiraled into bureaucratic madness and dangerous instability. Now, he's using his platform to call it out. Not because he's turned conservative, but because even liberals have limits.
When we know the top priorities are homelessness, housing, the issues of crime, quality of life, and issues related to regulation and taxes.
And honestly, who can blame him? California is supposed to be a symbol of progress, innovation, freedom. But under Newsom's watch, it's turned into a warning sign for the entire country. Sky-high taxes, rampant homelessness, crime skyrocketing in cities that once felt safe, and a governor who's more interested in podcasting and rehearsing for 2028 than actually governing the state.
We don't get our shit together, we're going to be a permanent minority.
I agree.
This isn't some isolated frustration. This is a tide turning. Maher voiced what millions are already feeling, that Gavin Newsom is the face of a Democratic Party that's completely lost touch. While people struggle, he lectures. While cities burn, he plays culture hero. And now, even his own side is starting to call it what it is: failure wrapped in progressive packaging.
And I just felt there was a little timidity in our party. And I thought we needed to call this stuff out. These guys are being on a banning binge across this country.
Which brings us to the big, flaming elephant in the room. The Democratic brand is in full meltdown mode, and guess who's standing on top of the ashes, smiling for the cameras? Yup, Gavin Newsom.
The Democratic brand is toxic right now. It's one thing to make noise, but you also have to make sense. And I think with this podcast and having the opportunity to dialogue with people I disagree with, it's an opportunity to try to find common ground.
And here's the wild part. Newsom himself admitted it. Said on record, the Democratic brand is toxic right now. And for once, he's actually right. The problem? He is the toxicity. He's not some innocent bystander watching the train wreck. He's the guy pulling the levers, making sure it derails right on time. Even Karine Jean-Pierre, Biden's former press secretary, the literal face of the party for a hot minute, quietly walked away. Didn't make a scene. Didn't go on some "I've seen the light" rant. She just dipped. Which honestly speaks louder than any press release. You don't leave a gig like that unless you see something rotten on the inside. And trust me, she saw it.
I think it's great. You've got this podcast. You're talking to people. You know, it's amazing to me that even that is controversial to some people. They call it platforming. If you talk to someone you don't agree with.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while the brand crashes, what's Gavin doing? Podcasting. Talking about bipartisanship. Posting photos from his vineyard like California isn't experiencing a mass exodus, because that's what's happening. People are leaving. Not just Republicans. Everyone. Families, small businesses, even celebrities who once drank the California Kool-Aid. Joe Rogan left, Ben Shapiro left, and no, they're not running from taxes alone. They're running from madness, from a state that punishes success, ignores crime, and lets political leaders cosplay as influencers instead of governing.
Essential services, that's not good enough.
You ever stop and think what it says when the people with the resources to go anywhere choose to leave California? That's not politics, that's survival. That's what happens when leadership collapses and the people in charge start treating serious issues like a brand opportunity. So yeah, the KBLA moment mattered, not because it was some viral soundbite, but because it was a pulse check. It showed us that even the people who've stood by the party for decades, voters who believed in the mission, are finally asking, what the hell happened? And if that question's being asked out loud on progressive black radio, you better believe it's being whispered in a lot more places too. Let's talk about the protests. Not the kind where people show up with handwritten signs and genuine rage. No, the ones we're talking about were way too clean to be real. O'Reilly called it. These weren't grassroots protests. They were staged, funded, packaged, and probably focus grouped before a single chant hit the street.
They recognized their vulnerability and legal liability as it relates to their deceit and lies.
And it gets better. These spontaneous movements had media trucks waiting before the first tweet dropped. Cameras were ready, angles were framed, and boom, breaking news. But here's the million-dollar question nobody in the mainstream wants to touch. Who was funding this? Who was handing out supplies like it was Coachella for chaos? Because someone was coordinating it. And while there's no smoking gun, the silence from Newsom's office says plenty. No condemnation, no real investigation, just awkward distance. You don't need a conspiracy board with red yarn to see the pattern. If this wasn't direct support, it was tolerated support. And that's where things get dangerous, because it stops being about messy governance and starts looking like calculated manipulation. Letting the city burn a little so you can play the I stood up to Trump card? That's not strategy, that's betrayal. And people noticed. If you're tired of fake leadership and real consequences, hit that subscribe button. Because we're just getting started.